Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I'd like to invite you to spend some time with me today as we discuss some of the differences between living in the south of China versus living in the north of China. And, those of y'all who don't know, I was living in southern China in Guangdong province for 15 years, but now I'm living in the northern part of China, and things are a little bit different, and people are a little bit different. So let's talk about it. So before we get into discussion, I got to get some coffee and head to the gym first. I'm sitting here on my motorbike, e-bike right now, and it's -5. It's cold today. So let's go. So now that we get that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the differences between South China and North China. More specifically, I'm talking about the places that I have personal experience living in. So it's not like referring to like every place in the South or every place in the North. For example, in Southern China, I lived only in Guangdong province for 15 years. And I lived in Shenzhen, which I'm not really going to talk too much about Shenzhen because Shenzhen is a different animal when it comes to China. What I mean is, in Shenzhen, some people say it's an international city. I don't feel like it is. There's really not a whole lot of foreigners there compared to other like real international cities like Bangkok or Manila or something like that. There's really a lot less foreigners in Shenzhen. But Shenzhen does have a lot of Chinese people who are not from Guangdong province. They're from all over China, which makes the city a little bit different and unique in that aspect. But outside of Shenzhen, I lived in Zhongshan for about 6 years. And then I stayed for maybe a year in Foshan in Shunda. So 7 years in that area. And it was mostly local Cantonese people, not really many people from outside provinces and stuff like that. But in Shenzhen, I stayed in Shenzhen for about 7 years, or maybe, about 7 years. And there, it's just a big mix of people from all over China. So it's a little different. So where I'm at now is in Luoyang. It's a smaller city also here in Henan province, which technically I guess is central China, but as far as China goes, people refer to this as the north of China. This is like how do I explain? It's like the southernmost part of northern China. But how you can tell the difference between North and South China is in the north, everywhere has like heating inside of the houses, where in the south they don't. And here in this area, it's kind of like the first area, or I would say the first area, but like in northern China, this is like the southernmost part that actually has heat. And then from here on up, it just gets colder and colder and that kind of thing. And from here further south, it gets warmer and warmer. So I'm kind of in the central of China, but it's cold here. It's like -5 right now as we speak, and it snows here and that kind of stuff, which you don't really get that in the southern part of China. So the weather is very different, which brings me to my very first point, is the weather. In the south, It's usually hot and humid most of the year, especially where I was living before. It's about maybe 10 months of the year was always hot. And then maybe 2 months you might need a hoodie, but other than that, you don't need that kind of stuff. Here in this city where I'm at now, it's obviously much colder. It's colder here now than I've ever been anywhere, than I've ever been in China before. And this is just the start of winter. They say February should be the coldest month, so still got a long ways to go. But as far as that goes, how do I feel about it? Because I spent like the past 20 years living in warmer places, well, about 18 years. I'm really not that used to the cold, and I really, really hate the cold weather. So as far as that goes, not a fan of the weather here, especially the winter weather. But when I first arrived in Luoyang, which I've been here for 6 months now, so I first arrived in like June or July, like the first week of July. It was really hot and nice, and I really liked it. But now the weather's getting colder, and I'm not a fan of the weather. It doesn't say anything bad about the city. The city is actually pretty good, but as far as the weather goes, I'd rather go back to Guangdong, where the weather is nice and warm all the time. Sorry, I'm getting my car. I used to try to get my car out like once a week to keep the battery charged and stuff like that, even though I don't drive it much. Just try to keep it, in good condition, because if I decide to stay in China much longer, I still might need my car if I go somewhere else, something like that. So, I try to keep it maintained. So I'm getting my car out once a week, take it for a car wash, drive it around a little bit. So that's what I'm doing right now. But anyway, let's get back to this video. So another big difference is gonna be the food. When it comes to the food, here where I'm at now in this city, they really love their beef and lamb. And for me, that's great, because that's what I like. I like meat, especially like beef, and I like lamb too, but just meat in general, I really like it. But in the South, where I was at before, seafood is huge down there. Everybody there loves seafood. And me personally, number one, I can't even eat seafood because I'm allergic to it. So when it comes to like shrimp and lobster and all this stuff, I can't even eat it. I'm allergic to it. So a lot of the stuff down there that the local people like to eat, I can't really eat those things. And also, even if I could, I don't really like it that much, just simply because of my own personal taste. Like my hometown where I grew up is kind of centrally located. We're nowhere near the sea or something like that. And we eat a lot of beef and chicken and pork where I live. So usually just a lot of meat in my diet and not seafood and stuff like that. So for me, here where I'm at now, in terms of the food goes, I like here better, just because it's just more suitable to my taste and what I'm able to eat. So I do like the food here much better than I liked in the South. Not saying you can't get meat in the South. Of course you can get beef and stuff like that, and lamb and everything you want down there, just like you can here. But it's not the standard like local dish, right? You have to get it from, whatever, like I don't even know how to say in English, like the whitey ran who lived there and cooked those type of meals and this and that, right? Like, so it's not really, I would say it's less authentic. And also maybe just the taste of a lot of that stuff isn't as good as it is here where I'm at, just because just what they specialize in is like beef and lamb type dishes. So I really do like that part about here. But here they do eat a lot of noodles, which I don't mind noodles. I like noodles, but I prefer rice over noodles, which in the South, they eat more rice than noodles. So, it's like you gotta live with a little bit of give and take, I prefer to eat rice over noodles, but I prefer to eat the beef and lamb over the seafood. So, but overall, in terms of the food here, I really do quite like it. No complaints at all whatsoever in that aspect. Now, another thing I can mention is about the cost. Everybody says, like this place here, like Henan, they say it's much cheaper than living in Guangdong, but I kind of disagree. I think for me, my cost of living is about the same. It hasn't changed any. It's not any cheaper, but it's not really any more expensive either. Because when I was living in Guangdong, like especially in Zhongshan and Shunda, the cost of living there is also relatively low. and compared to like some place like Shenzhen or Guangzhou or Beijing or something like that, right? The cost of living in those like second tier cities is still pretty cheap, even in Guangdong. So like down there in Zhongshan and Shunda, I was spending anywhere from about $1,000 to $1,200 per month for my rent and food and everything. All in is what I was spending to live there, and I'm spending about the exact same amount here. The only difference is actually here where I'm at now, I'm paying slightly less money for rent, but my house is much, much smaller. When I was in Zhongshan, I had a 130 square meter house, which was about 1,300 square feet, and I was paying roughly $300 a month for that house. Now, I'm paying about $200 a month for rent, but my house is only 60 square meters, so it's like, you know, half the size. So, in terms of rent, it's about the same, really. It's really not much different in terms of the rent and cost of living. I'm sure it will be much different if you go to another city, for example, like here in Henan. If I went over to a bigger city like Zhengzhou, it's going to be more expensive than here, but Zhengzhou will still be a whole lot cheaper than a place like Shenzhen or Guangzhou. So I can see why people would say the cost of living is cheaper here in Henan, because in the big major cities, it is. But when you're talking second or third tier cities like Zhongshan or Shunda or something like that, compared to a city like Luoyang or something like that, it's going to be about the same in terms of how much it costs you to live. So let's talk a little bit about the pace here. When it comes to the lifestyle, like the pace of life here, it's similar but different at the same time. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, in the south, where I was at in Guangdong, it was very slow pace, relaxing type of vibe, but it's very different than here. And like in the south there in Guangdong, where I was at, especially in Zhongshan, you have a lot of greenery and stuff everywhere, hot weather all the time. Like everywhere you go outside, it's like palm trees and stuff like that, right? So it just feels like a slow-paced vacation type of atmosphere. Like you literally feel like you're on vacation, like 24/7. It's just always on holiday is what it feels like, even if you're working. But here where I'm at now, it's also very slow-paced and relaxing type of atmosphere, but a very different feeling. So, like this place, for example, this city, is 2,000 or 3,000 years old. So it's been built up and developed over thousands of years, and you are surrounded by concrete. There's not a lot of greenery, and the greenery that does exist, because of the weather here, it's different type of greenery because it gets colder here. You know, the leaves change colors, the leaves fall off the trees get bare. So it's like still very slow pace, but it feels like more of a rural type, small town slow pace, not like vacation type slow pace. So even though this is a bigger city than where I was at, it just feels like a rural place because it is very slow paced, but you don't have the palm trees and the hot weather and all of that stuff year round. So it just has a different feeling. You don't feel like you're on vacation. You just feel like you're in a small town. So is that good or bad? For me, it doesn't really matter that much about if it has the vacation feel or the rural small town feel. I like both, but again, it comes down to the weather. I really prefer the weather and the palm trees and stuff, as opposed to, you know, right now the trees are naked, like there's not a lot of leaves on some of the trees, so the leaves are falling off, and the weather's cold. So that's what I don't like about it. But as far as the small town feel, that's okay. I like that. I don't want to be in a huge mega city like where I was at before. You know, I was living in Shenzhen with like 20 million people, and for me, I don't really care about that. I don't care about all the nightlife things and all that kind of stuff that's in those big mega cities. That's not really my thing. So that doesn't really affect me much. So I prefer the slower pace, whether it be the tropical feel or the rural small town feel. Both are okay. So let's talk a little bit about the people, because the people are very different. This thing's noisy here. You see that shit? So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the people, because the people are very different in both places. So just give you a little look at what I'm looking at here. When it comes to the people, yeah, it's very different. Anybody who knows China very well, there's a big difference in the people in the north and the south. And after so many years in the south, you know, the people in the south have always told me, oh, the people in the north, you know, treat us badly and they don't really like us that much and that kind of thing. And actually, I've experienced that, not here myself, like right now, but I've experienced it in the past, because I, you know, had a long-term girlfriend who was Cantonese, and we traveled a lot of places, and we were up in Beijing, and they really treated us like crap, and like they really treat us poorly. And a lot of it was just because of who she was, like her you know, her customs and stuff are a little bit different, you know. Like when we go out to eat, you know, we always use the hot water and then wash our chopsticks and this kind of thing. And people get angry. They go, oh, why you gotta clean this stuff? Our stuff is clean, blah, blah. And then you ask for direction and they're like, you don't know where you're going, you know, don't go there. Like they really treat you kind of badly when they hear your accent. And so, you know, you kind of have that kind of thing. But for me here, personally, I haven't had any bad experiences, even though people realize I have a Cantonese style accent when it comes to speaking Mandarin. So I learned Mandarin from Chinese people, or I mean from Cantonese people. So, you know, I really have a strong Cantonese type of accent when I speak Mandarin. And people realize that. They say, oh, you must have came from the south. I was like, yeah, I was in, you know, Guangdong for 15 years. They say, oh, that's why your Chinese is funny. So, you know, we have that kind of thing. But overall, people treat me pretty well in terms of how they treat me. From what I've noticed here is that most of the people are quite friendly. Like they get more attention here from local people in terms of people like just stopping me to talk to me and say hi and this kind of thing. It happens more often here than it did in the South. Because in the South, I think people are a little bit more, maybe more used to just seeing a lot of foreigners around, that kind of thing, and they just don't really care so much or pay attention. But here, like, even I just go sit at the coffee shop, people just come and sit down and just start chatting to me, like, oh, I just wanted to like talk to you because I didn't see foreigners here or something like that. So they just come and talk to you, and which is okay, and doesn't really bother me that much. But you have that a lot more here than you had in the South. And in terms of, you know, I'm a man, I got to talk about this. In terms of the women or the girls, whatever you want to say, here, I think the women seem to be, I'd say, more attractive here, like physically attractive. You know, they have just, you know, things are kind of in the right place, if you know what I mean, that kind of thing. In the South, you know, women tend to be a little bit more, I would just say, they say like thinner overall and smaller, more petite compared to up here. But at the same time, in terms of personality wise, I really feel more connected with the women in Guangdong province, just because I feel they're a little bit more open-minded and less traditional in terms of like culturally. It's like here in the north, I found a lot of the people to be a lot more traditional, and you can really feel a difference in how they act compared to people in Guangdong. The men too, like the guys in Guangdong also, you know, have a lot of friends from Guangdong province, and they seem to be more open-minded and just not so traditional in their ways, as opposed to here in northern China. There just seems to be a lot more traditional type of mentality. So in terms of if you were going like dating a woman or something, for me as an American, I feel more relatable culturally to Cantonese people. So you know, if you're from like a bigger city in Guangdong, for example, like Guangzhou or Foshan or Sunda or Hong Kong or something like that, I just find those people to be more relatable in terms of making friends or dating and those kind of things. So that's really all I got to say right now. I guess I can't think of anything else. Like, I don't write scripts for this stuff. I just tell y'all what I think, what's on my mind, how I feel. So how do I feel right now after living here for 6 months? Overall, you know, I don't mind it. It's not a bad city. I mean, I quite like the city, actually. The city's pretty good. The people are quite friendly. The only thing that I really dislike is the weather. I'm just not a huge fan of cold weather. And it looks nice right now outside, but it's cold and I'm not a fan. And one other thing that I really find a little bit inconvenient is traveling, because I like to travel a lot. And when I was living in Zhongshan, it was easy to just like hop on a ferry, go to Hong Kong airport and travel anywhere in the world, and for cheap. But here it's not convenient. You got to take a train to like Zhengzhou, and even there they don't have a lot of flights. You really need to go to like Shanghai or Beijing to get a flight out of the country. So it actually costs a lot more money to travel from here than it does from where I was at before. So before I could like go to Philippines or go to Thailand or something like that for like 600 to 900 renminbi for a flight. And here that same flight's like 2,000 or 3,000, just because it's no convenient place to fly from. So that's kind of annoying. But other than that, not too bad. I can't complain too much. Overall, I've enjoyed my experience here so far. And I still got about 6 months here. So after that, then I'll see what's going to happen next, if I'm going to stay or move on. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I got 6 months to figure it out. So that's really all I got for you today. Thanks for spending some time with me. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button, all of that good stuff. And I'll see y'all on the next video.